Hey everybody, it's Aldo Gandhi, and I just want to let you know really quickly that our swag shop is reopened. DeepDishTees.com is where you go, and that's tees with T-E-E-S. Clever name, guys. They're the new home of our merchandise. You can get t-shirts, you can get caps, you can get coffee mugs, you can get hoodies, you can get all sorts of good stuff, and you'll help out the bar room with the purchase. So head over to DeepDishTees.com.
Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Every summer in Chicago, the sunshine spotlights the city's spectacular skyline. Its luxurious lakeshore, marvelous monuments, and the over 200 neighborhoods in the city. And it also brings to light two of the greatest sports franchises in the world. On the north side, it's the Cubs. On the south side, it's the White Sox. This is Crosstown Crosstalk.
Hello and welcome to episode number 37 of Crosstown Crosstalk, presented by the Barroom Network. My name is Vinny Parisi, and of course, crickets. No Joey Parisi once again, but like I say every single week so far since this whole thing has been going on, we miss you, Joe. We know you'll be back soon. Baseball season, maybe. We didn't delay spring training, which is really, really good news. We found out that we're getting a universal DH. The National League is no longer going to be having pitchers who stink at batting bat. We might have a draft lottery, and we might have a season. We'll see what happens. Looking forward to all that. But for now, we're going to get some analysis from one of my favorite people on twitter.com/the internet in general. And of course, I'm talking about Cuba Dugout, Phil Selig, the Cuban baseball player expert, as I like to call him.
Wow.
Phil, how we doing?
Fantastic. That's some big praise, and thank you for that, and thanks for having me, and hello to everybody in Chicagoland, and in more so obviously in the White Sox nation for their interest and in increasing kind of focus on my work, and just want to say hi to everybody, and excited to chat about all things Cuban baseball and Chicago.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to have you. So the point of this show normally is we go over the White Sox and the Cubs, right? And try to bring like the scope of the local baseball scene while broadening it a little bit. We want to teach people about things going on across the league. I feel baseball has gotten very localized. Like people only care about their favorite team and their favorite city, where here I am being like, guys, there are players all over the league that we need to be watching regardless of who your favorite team is. Okay, so I'm a diehard White Sox fan. They've been my favorite baseball team since I'm -2 years old. But why wouldn't I want to enjoy watching a guy like Juan Soto or Fernando Tatis Jr. or Shohei Ohtani? So like we try to bring it to everyone. So that's why I'm extremely proud to have you on to talk about some of these great Cuban baseball players that the White Sox currently have and could have in their lineup eventually in the upcoming years. But before we dive into all that, I got to ask you, how'd you get into this whole thing? What made Phil Selig, a man from Ottawa, Ontario, decide, you know what I want to do? I want to cover Cuban baseball. How did that all start?
Yeah, so I mean, I definitely stumbled into it, and have to give a shout out to a good buddy of mine, Dave, who I used to play baseball with, and had been going for years, and had always been trying to convince me to come down to Cuba and check out a game. I had passing knowledge, and more just from the World Baseball Classic, but no understanding of the potential scope on the island itself. So I had some vacation time left over at the end of 2012, and looked and said, heck, let's try this out. So we went to a spot called Cienfuegos, which has produced quite a level of talent, and specifically for the White Sox. And you can see over my shoulder is, of course, Jose Abreu, who played for the Elefantes, and who I saw in that game. And right away, I was impressed both by kind of the scale of the stadium and the presentation, but also in the fact that, it was a little bit simpler. It felt like a throwback. You can call it a time machine to a bygone era, but very quickly kind of realized that I was seeing something special. And that was cemented, a couple years later when Abreu was making an impact in the majors, and more guys that, I saw and looked and say, hey, I captured that guy. I saw that guy. We're having an impact. And, over time, my photos have connected with a lot of the people there, and I've put a lot of effort into building relationships, and if nothing else, it's just an excuse to avoid Canada's winter while watching baseball, typically when there is none. So.
I like hearing that. I mean, we all miss baseball when it's not going on. And when you follow baseball on a world scale, you get it year round. And that's when it's the most fun to me. Being a native of Canada, do you cheer on the Toronto Blue Jays, or do you more just follow your favorite Cuban prospects around and root for them on a singular scale?
So I am actually, I should say that for a small period in the early '80s, when I was about 5 years old, I was trying to discover what team to cheer for, and actually, my parents did buy me a White Sox hat, and for a small period there, would have counted myself as a White Sox fan, and really liked Harold Baines, but kind of eventually followed my brother into Yankee fandom. So I've been a Yankees fan for my entire life, but there are definitely some Chicago ties to that, and just quickly, anecdotally, have been to Chicago before, and specifically Wrigley, which is when I was starting out as a photographer, and kind of one of the first photos that I took that made me think that maybe there was something here was of Wrigley. So there is a piece of Cuba dugout that's definitely been driven by Chicago, and like I said, fueled especially now by the number of players that are in that pipeline, and the amount of interest that by White Sox Nation and kind of their fandom. So.
Very cool. And the White Sox, they went 93 and 69 last season. They won the American League Central with, relative ease based on the rest of the division not really showing up to play like we kind of thought some of them would. It was all the result of a big rebuild that they started at the end of the 2016 season, following a disastrous season that year when they thought they'd be good, but they weren't. And then they had some internal issues, and it led to this rebuild. And the face of the rebuild was one of the great Cuban players in our game today, and that's Yoan Moncada, who came over to the Chicago White Sox with Michael Kopech in the Chris Sale trade. He is probably the biggest center of debate on White Sox Twitter, because there are people that look at the underlying numbers. They see he was a 4.5 WAR player, but his OPS isn't over 800. So can you consider him an all-star? His on-base percentage is outstanding. Some people like to call him soft, even though he played the second most games on the entire White Sox roster. So I ask you, somebody who's probably been watching Yoan Moncada back to his days as a Red Sox prospect, and maybe even before that, what do you make of him?
So I did first see him in Cuba, and there's a lot of talent there, and I understand that people are looking for more. And you got to realize he's still 26 or 27. So I think there is more there. I look at it through the perspective that he might be a victim of some of the hype that surrounded him. So he was touted as a shortstop coming through, which wasn't fair, because he predominantly played second base when he was when he was in Cuba. Now, that being said, younger players do oftentimes will debut much younger, and can even establish a starting role and get a lot of playing time in Cuba, but they don't bend over backwards to accommodate a player. So, for instance, he actually was probably blocked at shortstop, or at least for that Cienfuegos Elefantes team, because he and Abreu were teammates in Cuba, and for a short period. With Yasiel Puig as well, but he was kind of blocked by a player that went on and signed with the Dodgers, and Eribel Borreña. So that being said, I never thought that the shortstop predictions would stick. And the idea that he was the number one prospect in the world is a little bit unfair, but for the sake of a guy that, is playing Gold Glove caliber third base defense, and giving you he had close to a 380 on base percentage last year. And I know people are looking back at his 2019 and thinking that, it was going to be just an escalation. I think there's still time for him to recover. And I think if people do give him some time, I think he's a nice piece, and probably, the best this side of Louis Rober, probably, one of the higher ceilings of the guys that have established themselves in the major leagues from Cuba at this point.
So you brought up Luis Robert and relative to Yohan Moncada. If Moncada is your fifth or sixth best hitter on your roster, you're probably a really good baseball team.
Exactly.
And that's the White Sox were 7 games short of a 100-win season in a year where they had some significant injuries to consequential players, and Luis Robert was one of them. 3.6 WAR in only 68 games last year. If you expand that to about 145 games, we're talking an 8.5 WAR player potentially, which is right there with Ohtani, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., some of the other upper echelon players in the American League. Do you think Luis Robert can be an MVP caliber player in this game?
I think the sky's the limit for him. And similarly, it's another player that I did see play in Cuba. Now, I'll give the caveat on that he was about 16 or 17, but and coverage wasn't as strong other than what my eyes could see at that point. So I did notice that as a live young athlete that he was a little bit different than typically what you would see at that point. So, and he very quickly, if he debuted at 15, by the time he was 17, was putting up fantastic numbers, and that was on a team that was a mini dynasty. So for him to earn, as I said before, a lot of times younger players will get an opportunity, but on a veteran team, for him to get that starting role was pretty impressive. And actually, so he would have been patrolling left field at that point, and right field is another player that people are probably aware of now in Adolis Garcia. So that was a very, very strong team there. So I've chronicled him as through the rise. Got to see him again in person in Ottawa in 2016 when Cuba was here and playing against the Can-Am League. Didn't have a great series there, but again, you could see the poise. The biggest thing that impresses me about him, and having seen him do this in the minors, and even after kind of an underwhelming 2020, adjustments from at bat to bat and adjustments overall. And that's where I think the biggest thing is. He's actually, you can see, he's still young. He might rely a little bit on his tools at first, but there's a smarter baseball player in there than I think people give credit sometimes. And just his adjustments, and we saw that in 2021. And if he continues to make that in 2022 and stays healthy, I think the sky's the limit of this when it's all said and done. Part of it might just be the fact that, he is broken in younger than a lot of the other guys, but when all is said and done, he could go down, if he does what it looks like he's on the path to do, is potentially, if not the greatest player out of Cuba, one of the greatest. So.
Yasmani Grandal hails from Havana, if I'm correct.
Yep.
He continues to be an elite hitter. He was outstanding in 2021. The batting average was a little low early in the season, but as we've come to learn in the last 5 to 10 years, is batting average isn't the greatest stat when it comes to evaluating hitters. It's a good tool, but there are other things that just show how awesome Yasmani Grandal is at the plate, his ability to draw walks, all that. But do you think it might be time to really concentrate him on just being a pure hitter, more of a designated hitter with the White Sox? Or do you think there's something still there in terms of his defensive ability at catcher?
So I've watched kind of more the response to Grandal, and it is also interesting as well. Sorry, as a bit of an aside, as you say, he was born in Cuba but got out younger. We haven't really seen Cuban catchers make the jump to this level. I'm not quite certain what that is. I've had some people postulate that maybe it's the language barrier, but other players from other Latino countries have been able to do that. So I'm not quite certain, because there has been a great level of Cuban catching talent, but nonetheless, with Grandal, I mean, to me, as long as he's playing an adequate defensively, I think that value that he brings as a hitter, and it was even funny at points. As I saw the debate as it was going on, because for a long time he was kind of below the Mendoza line, but his on base percentage was ridiculous, and obviously providing that power. Ironically, I guess he ended up hitting close to what his typical average is. So this might spark some debate or some flames. I mean, like I said, as a Yankees fan, I would swap out Gary Sanchez for Yasmani Grandal in a heartbeat. So I think as long as he's not killing you behind the dish, that all of the other warts that people perceive, you actually realize are tools of a very effective hitter. And similar, like you said, to Moncada, if that guy is your sixth best hitter in your lineup's pretty stacked. And if Grandel's your seventh, your eighth, and he's playing even anywhere near average defensively, I mean, your team's set up pretty well. So.
Yeah, one of his great strengths as a defensive catcher is his ability to pitch frame. But if we move into the robotic umpire era, that ability is going to no longer really be required.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing, if I was him, he had the knee injury last year, and it cost him 2 months of the regular season, and he still came second on the team in terms of total home runs, only behind somebody we're going to talk about in a couple seconds here, Jose Abreu. Do you think Grandal can kind of be that powerful again going forward, or do you think last year was like the peak of his career?
So, I mean, catching's tough. It puts a beating on you, and he's not getting any younger there. So, yeah, we've probably seen a peak in that power. But I think with him, everything comes down to if he can give you a little bit of power and maintain that on base percentage, and like you say, kind of control some of that catching game, and some of that framing game, and help his pitchers out is incredibly valuable. So.
Where does Jose Abreu rank in terms of all-time Cuban greats?
A lot of people will put him number one. Personally, and my fandom is more in the past 20 years, as much as I do delve into the history increasingly. He is probably the best that I've seen. He's just a different type of hitter, just a purely professional hitter. And so his impact on the field is immense, but I think that there's no doubt the impact he's kind of had on the clubhouse and on that culture have had a bigger impact. So it's no surprise that some of the other players that have come through the pipeline and kind of the reason why I think the White Sox are renowned for being able to mine that gold is because of P2 being there and being that calm, steadying presence. And I know a lot of the analytics crowd don't love him, but I look at that and say, give me a guy that at the end of it is going to end up with 30 home runs and 100 RBIs every season, and just really focuses in when it's when with runners in scoring position and does what he needs to put bat to ball and try and drive those runners in. I think that's a skill that's severely lacking in baseball overall. And a guy that deserves immense credit and arguably is the best Cuban hitter of all time.
He seems to be getting better with age. Do you think that's something that is sustainable?
It depends to what degree and what you expect out of him. So I think that his conditioning has definitely gotten better. That's the one thing that I notice, and not to say that he was ever out of shape, but because I mean the first time that I ever saw him, and actually back in 2012, did get to meet him in passing. Again, another small anecdote that what's kind of cool about Cuban baseball is after a lot of the games, or at least they used to, the team kind of gets out, I guess, onto the bus, except most of the players live within walking distance of the stadium. So this monster walks out while we're waiting for kind of the team to come through and start signing autographs with people, and found out that, hey, that's Abreu, and then just walks home. So and it was striking, just the sheer size of him, but the commitment that he's put into his conditioning, and again, I think his two-strike approach, a little bit of the two-strike approach, but his approach with runners in scoring position, I think that ages well. That being said, I mean, you've got the pieces that are coming into play. And like I said, as Robert ascends and as Eloy Jimenez ascend, that, if Abreu, even if you're relying on him less, and his first base defense has even stepped up, so for anybody that thought, he was just, kind of standing there holding a glove before, his defense has become, kind of Gold Glove caliber. So I think even if over time in the next couple of years, if he drops off a little bit, I think just that reliance on having a professional approach and driving in runs, even if the younger guys in the lineup ascend a little bit more, is going to be a presence that they're really going to appreciate.
I love it. We're happy to have Jose here. A lot of great things have happened since he came along, and he was kind of put in a weird position. He had to replace an all-time great Chicago White Sox first baseman. I'm talking about Paul Konerko, and who replaced Frank Thomas in that role. So you have a stack of first basemen here that have really made an impact, and Jose Abreu's done a really good job kind of taking that role and leadership and bringing it to this team.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you say, that lineage is impressive, and the fact that he continues that, and I mean, maybe sometimes people might look at that and say he is no Frank Thomas, he is no Paul Konerko, but I look and say if he's not to that scale, he's not that far behind, and has been a great ambassador for the White Sox and effectively the face of the franchise for I guess we're going on close to a decade now, so time flies.
Yeah, I mean, you made me think of something right there. He might not reach the career numbers of Paul Konerko just for lack of playing time and being an older rookie and this and that, where Paul kind of started in his early 20s. But I don't, Abreu's not Frank Thomas, but he's probably more talented than Paul Konerko. I would say he's a better hitter than Paul Konerko. Paul Konerko never came close to winning an American League MVP or any sort of offensive award like that. So seeing what Jose Abreu's done, especially in the last 3 or 4 years, has just been magnificent. So.
Yeah, no, and I've definitely I've definitely enjoyed it, and like I said, I've met him a couple times in passing, and he's always been gracious that way, and so there is no Cuba dugout without Jose Abreu. So I wish him all the success in the world, and again as a mentor for a lot of the players, and we have many mutual friends, a lot of people that kind of played with him while he was still there, and they have nothing but good things to say. So
I love hearing that, and you might notice that's the player I've asked the most follow-up questions about is Jose Abreu, because he's just become such an icon here in Chicago of modern day Chicago sports athletes. I mean, there's guys like Patrick Kane and Khalil Mack who are like outstanding players in other sports in this town, but Jose Abreu is really right there with those guys. I'm wondering, in the nation of Cuba, does he have that same cultural relevance that he does on the south side of Chicago here?
I would argue so, and so I mean that's Cuba's a little bit strange sometimes, and there is one of the good things is that the online community is growing, the internet is opening, and Cubans themselves are fiercely loyal, and especially for players that have gone on to have success, even at points putting aside sort of some of the local rivalries, and so Abreu guys seem to love all of the Cubans seem to love him. There's debates at other positions, but I would say he's pretty much universally loved on the island of Cuba.
That's outstanding. How happy were you when Minnie Minoso made it to the Hall of Fame?
No, it was fantastic, and to see that it's, I guess the only argument is, why does something take so long? But it's never the wrong time to make the right decision, and the impact that he had is kind of being the first or the first really breakthrough Cuban in MLB. Obviously, there was a long period where that stopped, and so to see him get his due is fantastic. And similarly, on just returned from Cuba recently, and had got the opportunity to spend some time with a chap I'd met a few years ago that actually pitched in the first Cuban National Series back in 1962. And we one of the things I enjoy doing is talking some of that baseball history, and same thing, that passion. When you bring up Minnie Minoso, that you just see people beam, and they remember him from his time before he left. He played for Marianao, which isn't too far outside of Havana, and back when people could kind of follow his exploits in the majors there. And so similarly, there was a lot of pride by the Cuban baseball fanatics that I was able to talk to about that.
Outstanding. The White Sox kind of built the culture around Cuban baseball, and I think Minnie Minoso is one of the big parts of it, because he's the first black player to ever play for a Chicago baseball team, and that obviously set the tone for what's to come here in the future, even if it is 50 years down the line. Do you think that having Minnie Minoso play for the White Sox all those years ago is a big reason Jose Abreu considered the White Sox, which ultimately led to other guys wanting to follow Jose Abreu, who's probably getting close to being as legendary as Minnie in his own right?
I can't necessarily speak to that, versus I know that the White Sox were very respectful and having Minoso as part of the organization. I think that once Abreu landed in Chicago, I think that lineage and that history definitely helped, and there's probably a level too of, even though if it was in for shorter stints, that El Duque and more specifically Jose Contreras, who I think kind of continues to act as sort of a liaison and has seen through many of the outlets is basically going to try to mentor a little bit Norge Vera and his ascent through the organization. So I think there is no doubt that having that calming influence from people that have been there before, giving a lot of that guidance has helped specifically with the White Sox. I think it's similar for Yuli Gurriel and the crew in Houston. And, because otherwise we have seen, a lot of players in other markets, if that support isn't there, kind of flame out, get caught up in, fastballs, fast cars and fast women, and then flaming out sooner than later. So I think that professional approach that with a little bit of that feeling of home has definitely helped the players and created a great environment for success.
Outstanding. Whenever people talk to me about the cultural relevance of Minnie Minoso and what he's meant for not only the south side of Chicago, but the entire, Chicago city limits as a whole, one of the biggest Chicago Cubs bars on the north side is a place called Sluggers, and they have this outstanding batting cage. It's a lot of fun. It's a complete Cubs bar, right? Except for the fact that they have Minnie Minoso memorabilia all over the place. It's like Chicago Cubs plus Minnie Minoso. And for a place that is just vehemently against anything White Sox, that entire side of town, to have that much of a White Sox presence in that one particular bar that's right outside the friendly confines, it's outstanding to me, and I love to see it.
Nice. Yeah, so no, that's great. That's great to hear that Chicago, respects the contributions that such a great player did give to the game, and again, they're reaping the rewards of that to this day. So,
yes, absolutely. So last year's class of international free agents throughout the international signing period, the White Sox landed Yoelqui Cespedes, who is, of course, younger brother of one of the better players from the last generation, Yoenis Cespedes. We saw him win a couple home run derbies, have an impact with a couple different MLB teams. Do you believe Yoelqui can be as good as his brother Yoenis was at the MLB level, or do you think the White Sox are looking for something completely different? What's your take on him as a prospect right now? I believe he's number 3 on the White Sox, or he might even be 2 on the White Sox overall prospect list.
So they are half brothers, and as time goes on, I can see more comparisons physically. So as Yoelqui kind of grows into his body, now he's always been a little bit shorter, but even going back as I first started chronicling him up close about 5 years ago, and it was still stocky, kind of fit lad, but Yoenis is perhaps the greatest raw athlete to come out of Cuba. And so that results in tools on the field. It also obviously resulted with some things off the field. So I don't think you're getting that athletic peak out of Yoelqui, but he seems to be much more mild-mannered and kind of simpler kid. So I don't think you're going to deal with any of that stuff off the field. So the tools there are real, but I would say that Yoenis is probably closer to Luis Rober and those pure just crazy athletic tools versus I think Yoelqui, if he can put together, if he can kind of find a lane and stick to it, and it is going to be a nice piece, a very nice piece. And as the more I've thought about it, I think if he ends up being Melky Cabrera for his career is would be a nice path for him. So.
Absolutely. Melky Cabrera. I liked having Melky on the White Sox for a couple years. It was in the back 9 of his career, but I enjoyed having him around for a little bit. That's a name drop that kind of makes me smile a little bit. He was a lot of fun. A year later, and we kind of heard about it when they first signed Cespedes, that they would be signing Oscar Colas in the upcoming international free agent signing period when they had more money involved. Do you like this signing for the White Sox? I believe he's the 5th overall international free agent prospect. I think it could be really good for them in the long term. And do you think he'll be an impactful MLB player?
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of been the worst kept secret in all of baseball for close to 2 years, and so I feel in a sense for the kid because his timing couldn't have been worse. So basically, he had been playing, had been granted the opportunity to go and play professionally in Japan with SoftBank, and decided that he wanted to play at a higher league, and made those intentions clear right before March of 2020, and so got stuck in between with all of the COVID nonsense, with the changes in the signing periods, and kind of and some contract dispute with SoftBank whether they were going to release him. So that's what delayed him being able to sign. So and of course through there, and I mean I've seen the debate, and at points I hope I haven't fueled with any clickbait the talk of him as a Cuban Otani. The thing with that is that kind of morphed and took off, but also recognize that when those comparisons were first being made, did we know that Otani was Otani? So all to say that I think that his path is as a right fielder. He has played some first base. So in what I have compiled and what I have seen of him, because it has been a little bit tougher to follow him, and that goes for some of the guys in Cuba. If they're away from the Havana spotlight, can be a little bit tough to get details, information, video, all of that on. But from what I have seen, he has been putting in a lot of work, and because the biggest concern was going to be over his conditioning, and so he seems to improve that way. I do like his approach in what I've seen. It seems like a very balanced from the left-hand side that and has good opposite field power. More recently, I think maybe I've seen a little bit of a change in his mechanic, where he finishes a little bit higher on the backswing, and I think a comparison I made before is it's not quite as exaggerated as say a Fred McGriff, but if it gives you that kind of idea where he's finishing high, which may be an attempt to go for more power. So I think that the caveat with all of these newer players is these are not Jose Abreu and Yuli Gurriel for the sake that you're not getting a player with as much experience coming in. The other side of that is that for an organization that's signing them for way fewer dollars than those players used to receive, is you have a longer runway to work with that kid. But that being said, the time will be closer to the essence, because the one thing that and where the White Sox have kind of taken advantage of some of this, but there's a debate over, the opportunity cost, and also the reason why a lot of other organizations might not go that direction, where most other organizations are signing the 16 and 17-year-olds out of the Dominican. More of those players are becoming eligible out of Cuba. So Colas, as a 22-year-old, obviously you hope is going to have a quick ascendance, and could maybe be a September call-up in 2022, or at least get an invite to camp and be pushing the envelope or pushing that conversation for 2023. So,
Absolutely. Long-term, Cespedes or Colas in White Sox right field?
well, so my dream obviously would be Robert in center field, Colas in right, and Cespedes in left field. You know what? There's a lot of different ways that can go, and so that's why I don't necessarily get purely into the prognostication game or say that either one of them is going to be a future anchor for the Sox. There's no doubt that they're assets, and so those signings help the organization. That there's a number of different ways that the White Sox can go, and you hear the chatter of Conforto. So I don't know what that means in terms of what they think, or could they use them as trade flotsam down the road, or it's whoever forces the hand first. So the White Sox have some options there, except that obviously I think they're pushing into win now mode, and so the future is now. So if either one of those two players takes off this year and goes wild and forces their hand, otherwise I also wouldn't be surprised to see if the White Sox make kind of an ancillary move, because they realize that they need major league contribution right now. But that being said, then can you use those players to aid yourself in another situation? So, but all things being equal, I could see, gun to my head, I think Colas sticks or plays up better as a starter. If Cespedes makes it but isn't a star or a starter has more tools to be a serviceable fourth outfielder. So his flexibility might mean his ceiling is lower, but could mean a longer MLB career, if that makes sense. So
Sure, absolutely. I appreciate that answer. Are there any other Cuban MLB players that may be associated with any MLB team besides the White Sox or the Cubs, or it could be any team, or maybe somebody that hasn't even signed yet that you want people to know about right now?
yeah, so I focus quite a bit on obviously the players that I've seen, and some of that is maybe just to generate clicks, but so if I have photos and that sort of thing, but also to be able to speak about from firsthand knowledge. So one of the signings that does excite me recently, if only for the sake that I want to see if the kid can make it, is Cesar Prieto with the Orioles. I think that. Again, the market's been wonky, and the push down on pricing, unfortunately, is not good for the players, but it's great for the teams that are signing them. So, for them to sign the defending, or well, I guess he's not defending anymore, but the Cuban batting champion for $750,000 for a kid that in his first 3 years in the league has been lights out is an exciting prospect, and especially because there's a player that could end up. And I assume the reason why he ended up taking that deal is that he does see the path potentially to the Orioles is much quicker, much easier. And so for the sake of him receiving much less than I would have predicted at first, I really hope that results in him getting a chance to play in the pros sooner and having an impact. So
Awesome. Can't wait to watch him. Hope he makes it to the MLB. We'll be keeping an eye on the Orioles from your recommendation. I'm excited to see if he's able to make it. Today, some news came out across Major League Baseball that the owners have agreed that they no longer need the designated hitter out of National League, and they are going to have it. And we're not going to have to watch guys like Chris Sale or previously John Lester, like pitchers who are bad at hitting hit. We don't have to see it anymore. And they're going to instill a draft lottery to try and maybe keep some of these teams from tanking. And hey, let's not bottom out and only win 50 games, because it's really not going to give us a guaranteed number one overall pick in the college draft. So what are your thoughts on that? Are you excited? And are you also happy that we probably, as of right now, we don't have an official delay to spring training yet?
yeah, so I'm burying my head in the sand on some of that and some of the talk for the sake that, like, at least I do have baseball in my life for now. So that's kind of my coping mechanism. But because, I mean, one of the things is that massive MLB fan, but also huge Cuban baseball fan. So I like both products for what they are. I don't necessarily try to compare the two, and so I enjoy both. I typically count myself as a purist, but on the DH front, it's time. For the sake of, I understand the debate that it spurs better management and whatnot, but watching pitchers hit is just painful, and so glad to see that, and also it's probably a key concession for the sake that if wages are going to continue to be pushed down in Major League Baseball, I mean, there's a myriad of reasons for that, and some of it is just time. Teams have gotten a little bit smarter with the service time to realize that, for the average player to become a free agent by the time they're 30, no one wants to sign a 30-year-old free agent. So, I mean, there's got to be some tweaks to the system there, but at least creating 15 new jobs is kind of a way to show some good faith and say, here's an opportunity for guys to earn some money. So, excited about that. Like you say, they're not announcing that there's a delay. I don't know. I think there are some big things. I think there are some big things in there. And if you haven't watching the trend, like I said, or like in a small derivative of that, if you look at just the international draft, and I mean, because Luis Rober is kind of the last Cuban to sign as kind of a pure free agent. I mean, he got $26 million, and then the White Sox had to pay a $26 million penalty on that. So $52 million for a player. Those days are long gone when you see that Oscar Colas signs for 2.7, which, if, again, due to his bad timing, that might have been 4 million, 5 million a year ago. So those dollars are being pushed down. So, the players union has to look at it, and they need some fundamental changes here. And I've seen some good suggestions that I think revolve around basically just getting guys to free agency sooner, but I don't think the league wants to or the owners want to do that. So there's some big things on the table that aren't even really being dissected just yet. So we could be in for a long one. I'm praying we're not. We could be in for a long one, but if we are, then at least I've got the Cuba National Series to keep me warm for 75 games. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited to be following along too. It's something that I've taken interest in since becoming a fan of your work. And there's seriously always going to be baseball in my life as well as yours. And I'm happy to hear it. We talked before that we went live here about a couple of lighthearted things that don't really have anything to do with baseball. You're from Ottawa. I also have a hockey show here on the Barroom Network where we love talking a little bit of hockey. Do you follow the Senators at all? Do you have any favorite players? Any loyalties to the game of hockey? I know it's big up there in Canada.
Yeah, so I mean, it's actually one of the funny things is that as a Canadian that sometimes feels a little bit more American. I can barely skate to save my life, and so that's why I think baseball's played such a big part of it. But no doubt, I follow the Sens in passing. It's been a tough go over the last little bit. Although I mean, there've been a couple little spikes in there where the team almost made it to the finals, and so it always seems like one step 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or 3 steps back. So with that being said, kind of looking forward, hopefully very, very soon that to get back out and kind of get back into that environment, because going to live hockey is always kind of fun, even though people sometimes call Ottawa the city that fun forgot, or the city that was built one bylaw at a time. So but actually more excited this year that after a hiatus, firstly to COVID, and then secondly due to actual economic situation of the baseball team, that we're going to be getting a Frontier League team back here in Ottawa, which I'm hoping presents the opportunities that even if the Ottawa team doesn't bring in some Cuban players on kind of, it's not an exchange, but they're able to sign Cuban players. That I know Quebec City and Trois Rivières have done that in the past. So if they bring in some of the players that can chronicle their story and tell more tales and more content for the website, all the better. So.
Absolutely. I'm going to have to pay my visit to Ottawa one day, hopefully after everything that is going on in the current world can kind of pass along a little bit. I would love to get to Ottawa because I want to see obviously some baseball up there. And of course, the Senators to me are a fun team to watch. They're one of my favorite teams to watch because I love prospects and all that kind of stuff. When it comes to hockey, I follow the draft very closely, and the Sens have some good young talent coming through the system there. So get some goaltending and they'll be off and running. They got their captain. So it is also Super Week. And, that's the big topic around the sports conversation right now. The Los Angeles Rams are getting ready to host the Super Bowl for only the second time ever. Last year's Tampa Bay Buccaneers did the same thing. They will be playing against the David in the David versus Goliath kind of Super Bowl that we have here, the Cincinnati Bengals. Do you have a prediction?
You know what? I think I think LA, to see them kind of rebound after losing a couple of years back and to still be in it is good for them and to host and so. I didn't like the Matt Stafford deal when they made it. It didn't make sense to me, but I'm eating crow on that one. So I guess that's why I'm not an NFL general manager. So it's I'm going to watch it more just as a social event, because I'm actually a bigger Patriots fan. People jack me up on that. How can I be a Yankees fan and a Patriots fan? But I actually grew up on the East Coast of Canada, and so a lot of times you'll see some strange allegiances based on the television feeds that we got there. So that kind of explains that. So it's in a regard, I guess it's good to see kind of two newer teams in there, even though obviously Los Angeles was there recently, and so Cincinnati making it. Who would have predicted that? So I mean, could we be seeing the rise of in Joe Burrow, the next generation, or could this be the peak? So there's all kinds of interesting storylines there, but I think again, it's only the second time you can ever say this. Give me the home team in the Super Bowl. So.
Absolutely. It's a lot of fun. I'm very happy to have had you on our show. Where can people find your stuff? The Twitter, the website, all your content that you're doing, the photos. Where can everyone get access into that?
Yeah, so I've tried to make it as simple as possible. That my website is cubadugout.com. My handle on Instagram, on Twitter. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Facebook. All is as Cuba Dugout. and check back frequently. I try and hit all the different platforms. Most of the photography is mine, most of the video is mine, and dabbling more and more into the writing side of it, and try and provide some diverse looks. I mean, I know there's a lot of interest in the prospect side of it, and when I have that pertinent information, I like to share it, but also providing stories of some personal travels that I've had that revolve around baseball, and talking about the Cuban National Series itself, and also Cuban baseball history overall. So kind of all things in the Cuban sphere, trying to promote that and tell some great stories. So
Absolutely. Can't appreciate enough what you do for the baseball community, and everyone needs to check you out and become a fan of your work because it's outstanding, and I can't thank you enough for coming on. Thank you.
no, perfect. Thank you for having me, and always love talking about it. And love talking about it with people that are passionate about the impact that Cuban players have had in baseball, and specifically for their teams. And so it's great that interest is growing. So
Absolutely. And we'd like to have you back on maybe mid-season, get a little bit of an update on what you're seeing from the Cuban side of things, maybe someone who came up in the league and made an impact that we weren't expecting, and what the White Sox are doing. So it'll all be a lot of fun. And with that, we would like to send everybody to a quick commercial break.
It just pisses me off to the fact, to no end, to see him on another team when he should still be with the Hawks.
Rocky Wirtz should call Stan Bowman and just remind him that he's still fired because of that trade. Just call him up, Stan, how you doing? How's the family? Oh, by the way, just so you know, you're still fired.
I mean, he's so good, dude.
And it made me laugh when Panarin was on the Hawks. He's only good because of Kane. Are you stupid? Did Kane ever have 100 points before Panarin came along? What the hell are you talking about? So, yeah. I don't know. That used to piss me off, too, and I'm happy that when they did trade him, he proved that it wasn't because of Patrick Kane. And I think every normal, rational Blackhawks fan would agree with me on that, saying that they're happy seeing him have success without Patrick Kane because Artemi Panarin deserves his props as well.
Oh, yeah, and it's not his fault he was traded. You can't hate Panarin because
the
Hawks is an idiot.
I don't hate Panarin.
No, yeah, I love
Panarin. Bowman lost 3 trades involving Brandon Saad. Not 1, not 2, 3.
I love Panarin because he gets in. You could tell he's passionate. Like he's throwing gloves over at Brad Marchand. I love this guy.
And Artemi Panarin, he challenged some political controversies in Russia a couple years ago, and he had to take a leave of absence to go help his family, protect them or whatever. And the Rangers had a 300 winning percentage while he was gone. So in terms of most valuable players to his team, it's hard to argue against Artemi Panarin for the New York Rangers.
Yeah. And over this weekend, one of our family members, asked me, and a lot of times people who aren't huge NHL fans, but really big Blackhawks, they don't necessarily know how certain players are doing, especially over in the Eastern Conference.
That's kind of why we invented this show.
Yeah. They don't watch the games, which is understandable. And, when the Rangers make their way over to Chicago or vice versa, it reminds people oh yeah, Artemi Panarin, how's he doing? And a question I get a lot is, how did the Hawks ever let that guy go? And then you have to explain, it was probably one of the worst trades I've ever seen the Blackhawks do in the past 20 years. But then you have to remind that person, this guy is, not only is he doing good with the Rangers, he gets MVP votes every single year, it seems, and he's going to win one of these years.
Welcome back to Crosstown Crosstalk, episode number 37. Watching that advertisement with me, Joey, and Frankie, it just goes to show how passionate and heated we can get on, our favorite sports teams and all that kind of stuff. So make sure every Wednesday you tune into the Barroom Network at 2 p.m. Central Time, 3 p.m. Eastern, where we have conversation like that all the time. It's been a little more lighthearted lately, talking about the Super Bowl, the All-Star game, all that kind of stuff. But as the playoff races get a little bit heated, I know that things are going to get a little bit spicier again on that show. Thinking of the Boston Bruins with Joey Parisi. Brad Marchand has been suspended for 6 games. Patrice Bergeron is out with a upper body injury. We know it's something to do with a concussion in his head, so they're going to take it slowly with that. And Tuukka Rask has retired. So the Bruins they're going to play tonight for the first time ever without a single player that played on their Stanley Cup championship team in 2011. So wild times going on. It's going to be interesting as teams like the Detroit Red Wings and New York Islanders try to catch Joey's Bruins in the postseason chase, and the Washington Capitals for that matter. So it's going to be a lot of fun to go over. And I'm telling you guys, it's must-see programming. Bar Down Talking Hockey. We get a little heated. We have some laughs. A lot of references to Breaking Bad. Joey thinks Walter White isn't that evil of a human being. All sorts of fun stuff going on with that show. So I can't stress it enough that people are going to want to tune in. I kind of touched on with Phil Selig from Cuba Dugout, which outstanding performance by Phil. I thought he was outstanding. He was very informative and a lot of fun to have on this show. So it's, my pleasure to bring guys like that in who can give, tremendous detail on certain areas of expertise. I'm not sitting there watching the Cuban League every single day and keeping track with that. But when guys like Oscar Colas and Yoki Cespedes join the White Sox by signing via international free agency, I know who they are before they even make these signings. Where maybe 5 or 6 years ago, without a guy like Phil, I probably don't know this stuff in advance. So having guys like that and girls like that on these shows, I think it's tremendously important. I can't thank him for coming on enough. And one of the things we touched on at the end was the fact that Major League Baseball announced a couple changes that are going to be going on over the next couple years. And with the new collective bargaining agreement, the owners have announced that they are going to rid pitchers hitting by choice, obviously. I'm pretty sure if a team like the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim want to forfeit the DH so that Shohei Ohtani can still hit on days that he pitches, and then when he comes out, they're just going to have to let the reliever hit and pinch hit and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, I believe the DH rule is no longer a part of the National League, which there are some baseball purists out there, and believe me, I get it. I've been a fan of baseball for a long time. I know when we were kids, the best athlete on the team was the best pitcher on the team, and he also happened to probably be the best hitter on the team. But that's not really what it's like anymore. Even a guy like Oscar Colas, he's giving up the pitching part of his career. Not everybody's doing what Ohtani does. So I think it's great news for the National League. It's going to be more fun to watch. Maybe the Cubs will go out and re-sign a guy like Kyle Schwarber, who can hit 30 home runs in his sleep, but there was really no room for him. You don't really probably want him playing first base. That kind of was a failed experiment by the Boston Red Sox. I think he can play some competent left field, but if you can have a guy who's a left field wizard out there that can also hit, you'd probably rather that. So shout out to that. I'm pretty happy about it. Very excited about the fact that Major League Baseball is also going to implement a draft lottery. People who watch other sports besides baseball, I mean, probably a lot of people tuned in here watch other sports. The draft lotteries are some of the funnest events on the entire sports calendar. When the Devils won the draft lottery for the National Hockey League, it happened twice. I jumped up and screamed like a little boy 10 different times. I was so excited. Imagine that feeling, your favorite baseball team. They just missed the playoffs, but they get rewarded. They won the draft lottery. Oh, sometimes tanking isn't always going to work for you, Baltimore Orioles, who have won about 100 games in the last 3 years combined. I'm exaggerating, but it's probably not far off. And just these teams, they continue to be bad. And we're finally seeing a team like the Texas Rangers start signing some players, so they're not going to be bottoming out every single year. That's no longer going to be as beneficial to you because you might not get the number 1 overall pick anymore. And I know the baseball draft is the hardest to predict because guys like Chris Bryant could be taken 2nd overall behind a guy like Mark Appel, who never even made his major league debut, and he's retired by now. So it'll be interesting to see how that all goes down, but some big rule changes. Rob Manfred was expected to get up on that podium today and delay spring training. He did not do that. Rob Manfred did not delay spring training. It is still scheduled to begin 8 days from today. That they're going to have a meeting on Saturday, and like everybody always says, and you might be so far away, but it could end at any time. It's kind of like NHL overtime. This game could end at any minute, but it's far from over. That's kind of how the Major League lockout currently is right now. One little spark in between the two sides could really lead to some great advancement in the collective bargaining negotiations. So to address Skylar's comment and the thing about the small market extra draft picks, I'm not certain if they're going to have that little compensation round in between the first and the second anymore. I would probably be in favor of it because I hate when people think that only the Yankees, Red Sox, and Dodgers can compete for the World Series. And then you got teams like the Cubs and the White Sox who each play in a major market, but sometimes act and operate as mid-market teams, I can't say that I would ever get rid of those compensation picks for those teams. Um, I I'm excited about the draft lottery, though, I must say, and I hope teams really start to be the Tampa Bay Rays if you don't have all this money. Be the Oakland A's, who are going to start a rebuild and probably do a better job of teams with more money than them. So I'm a fan of it all. And one thing I also wanted to touch on before we head on out of here, very excited, hoping that the two sides can get something going before spring training starts. I saw a tweet actually before we get into the last topic of the day from Ben Verlander, who, yes, you guessed it, he is the brother of Justin Verlander, superstar, future Hall of Fame pitcher for the Houston Astros / Detroit Tigers. He said it would be really, really funny if the MLB and Major League Baseball Players Association could come to an agreement on Saturday, but kind of keep it hush hush, and then announce it officially right before kickoff of Super Bowl 56, just to kind of like take a major sports spotlight on Super Bowl Sunday. I'm a football fan, so I'm not about, one sport over the other. Like I love my three favorite sports equally, and basketball is really starting to creep up into there too. So I'm not one sport versus the other by any means, but I do think that would be incredibly funny and petty, because the NFL does own the entire calendar and they do a wonderful job with it. So, and speaking of the NFL, Super Bowl 56 Sunday, I want to say it's 5:00. I don't even know for sure exactly what time it is. It's going to start, because I'm just going to be sitting there eating buffalo chicken dip and pizza and chicken wings and chips and all the stuff we talked about on yesterday's Bar Down show as our favorite snacks. I'm going to be eating all that, watching coverage leading up to the Super Bowl. I believe my Devils play at noon too, or 12:30, so I got that game to worry about as well. But I'm excited for the Super Bowl. We gave our picks on yesterday's Bar Down Talking Hockey. You can hear from Joey Parisi and Frankie Mueller on the predictions that they made. I'll reiterate my pick one more time while I'm here. Why not? Why not? I believe that the Los Angeles Rams are going to win the Super Bowl. I'm not proud of my prediction because I love Joe Burrow. I know I got my guy Skyler in the chat. We've bonded over Joe Burrow over the years. We knew that he was going to come to the MLB and the NFL and be a complete dog. And he was. He's a complete dog. Go Tigers, go Coach O, wherever you land. I don't think he's landed anywhere yet. Either way, I'm excited for Joe Burrow, and I hope the Bengals win the Super Bowl, but I don't think they're going to. I think their offensive line is their biggest weakness, and that is the biggest strength of the Los Angeles Rams. I see guys like Aaron Donald, Von Miller, and Leonard Floyd just having an absolute field day with that offensive line. And the Tennessee Titans were able to sack Joe Burrow 9 times. Do I think the Rams are going to sack Joe Burrow 9 times? That's a lot, even for the best team against the worst team. I don't think that they're going to sack him 9 times. But then again, if they sack him 5 or 6, they don't have Ryan Tannehill coming out there on a 3-and-out. They have Matthew Stafford throwing to Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham Jr., 2 superstar receivers in their own right. So I don't think that it's going to be enough to overcome for Joe Burrow. Or I think it's going to be too much to overcome for Joe Burrow. I believe he's elite. I believe they'll be back. Jamar Chase, this team's awesome. I had them coming in last place in the AFC North this season. I had the Browns coming in first. Basically, what I said about the AFC North, the exact opposite happened. It basically flipped itself upside down. But sometimes that's the way it is. And the Bengals are here, and they deserve it. And I'm rooting for them. But like I said, when I'm making my bets, I am going to take the Rams and the points, because I don't think it's going to be really close. But I'm not sure. I might be wrong, Skyler. It might not be a blowout. But even if they win by 2 touchdowns, it's like that's kind of where I'm going with it. I don't like that that's the case, but it's kind of where my brain is telling me to go in terms of making my professional pick and telling people where to put their money. But, don't listen to me anyway. I'm stupid. If I was any good at gambling, I probably would be on an island right now watching Cuban baseball with Phil Selig. So it's going to be a lot of fun, though. I do wish everybody happiness, health, and safety during the Super Bowl. I know it could be a sketchy time of year. A lot of people treat it like New Year's Eve 2.0. Don't do anything dumb after the Super Bowl. Get home safe. Do what you got to do. Be around good people. I know we got some stuff going on in the world right now that's not all that great, but take care of your business. Enjoy the Super Bowl. I'm very excited to hear everybody's picks. You can tweet them at me at Vinny Parisi, unless you think the Bengals are going to win the Super Bowl. Then flood at Joey Parisi's Twitter messages. Basically, any complaints that you have with the Barroom Network in general, direct them absolutely to at Joey Parisi's inbox on Twitter. I'm sure he'll be happy to get back to you with any complaints or disagreements from our two shows here on the Barroom Network. But for Joey Parisi, and I'll even give a shout out to at the King Bean on Twitter. These guys do outstanding work with me and help make my job a lot easier. I've had a lot of fun doing these shows. A special thank you to Aldo Gandia, the great host of the Barroom Network / director, all the stuff he does for us. Outstanding. For me, at Vinny Parisi on Twitter, as always, thank you for listening.
Thank you.